All right, I'm here today with Jay, who's been a great member inside our Total Life Fitness program, and today he's going to share a little bit about his experience. So, Jay, just tell us a little bit about what you're struggling with prior to joining Total Life Fitness.
Yeah, thanks, Luke. I think my biggest struggle before I started was um, I was very active. I was exercising. I've exercised my whole life. I was in the Army. Um, and so I would do a lot of cardio, and I never would really seem to lose the weight that I wanted to. And sort of my MO for that was I would just do more cardio and try to eat less. And so I came to the conclusion that whatever I was doing, it wasn't working. And so I needed to make a change, and Total Life Fitness had been recommended to me by a friend. So that's how I called you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember that conversation where we were kind of going over, how you were doing a lot of things, but just weren't quite making the progress that you wanted. So you mentioned that you were obviously referred by a friend. So I guess, why did you ultimately decide to join Total Life Fitness? And did you have any hesitations around joining?
Um, well, I joined after I talked to you, and I looked at the program first, and then I talked to you. The thing that I thought appealed to me was um, the exercise component of it, the nutrition component of it, and then the check-in component of it, or the accountability. To me, those were um, three things that I think I needed. Two more than others. The accountability is probably one I needed the most, and then the nutrition. I also needed that, and that's to say, I always have eaten well, and so has my wife, but I needed to change how I was eating. So that was why I chose. Some of my hesitations or apprehension was at first I was worried, oh, I'm going to have to completely eat differently and go on a strict diet. I'm not going to be able to cook dinner with my wife and eat the same stuff. Of course, after I talked to you, I realized that wasn't the case at all. And so that relieved that concern. And then to be completely honest, I was a little apprehensive about the price of the program, but it's an investment in myself, and knowing what I know now, I have no problem paying that. It was definitely worth every penny, and it's an investment I think that's going to pay off as I keep my weight down over the next course of 10, 15, 20 years, the rest of my life. That it's going to be pennies on the dollar at that point.
There you go. Love it. Thinking about it in terms of an investment, and I've obviously made a lot of positive changes. So now kind of share what have been the biggest specific results that you've gotten.
Well, I lost almost 20 pounds, a little over 18, I think. And that I did that in the first 6 months of the program, the first term or part of the program that I was in. Um, and I kind of leveled out there, and I realized that, you know, I think that was kind of where I naturally needed to be and where I wanted to be. I like, the way that I looked, the way that I felt. And so I wanted to go an extra 6 months with the program just to stay with what I was doing, have that accountability, and just continue with the habits that I had. And I felt like it was important for me to be in the program for another 6 months to make sure that I kept that weight off. So, the other big improvements or things for me or accomplishment is just feeling better, feeling. I always thought that I felt healthy, but I even feel, I think, a little healthier now than I did before. I've gotten stronger, I've gotten leaner. Things that I used to do, that I still do, that I truly enjoyed, like, let's say, downhill skiing, I was kind of usually wiped out by the end of the day. And this winter I felt good most of the day. So just not carrying around 20 pounds makes a difference in everything that you do.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you kind of answered my next question was just kind of how has it impacted you personally, kind of being down 20 pounds, and how about like mentally, now that you kind of had that block of like you were doing and trying all these things, and now you're able to make the changes, like you said, without, the restrictions. So how has that felt for you, being able to make those changes?
Yeah, really good. It's given me confidence. that, a newer confidence that I hadn't had before. I think you and I had talked before that I'm going to make some career changes at the end of this summer. And when we talked a year ago, I knew that was going to be my plan. And I felt like I knew myself well enough that when I make that big change, I don't want to be thinking about my weight or things like that. And so I feel now better prepared to take those other steps in my life that I've been planning on doing um, now that I've been through the program and got the results that I wanted.
Awesome. So happy to hear that. I know we talked about that, wanting to make the changes personally and career wise, and obviously you're setting yourself up for success there as well. So, now that you've kind of, been through, our processes and everything, why would you recommend Total Life Fitness to someone else?
Again, they're the three things that kind of the foundation of your program, the exercise, the nutrition, the accountability. I think you need all three of those things. Um, I would recommend to somebody, the program, but before they sign up, that they need to realize that, um, you know, this is not a diet, or this is not something you have to embrace the idea that you're going to make a permanent change. And then to effectuate that permanent change, you have to make, or, you have to have habits that are sustainable. And so, um, I love that about the coaching and Mark and with you, that, it's not everybody's the same. And everybody has to develop their own habits that work for them. And I know mine are probably different than a lot of people that are in the program, and theirs are different from mine. But that's the great thing about the program, that, you have guidelines, and however you make those exercise routines, however you get your calories, your protein, all that sort of stuff that you need to do, however you communicate with your coach, that's up to you. And you know, for the exercise and for the nutrition, um, the program, because of the program, I have habits now that are sustainable in those two areas, and so that's why I feel like I can move on, and that's why I would recommend the program.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for sharing that and appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you.